Hi, this is Natu, a guy who's way too old and way too long involved in this game, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Now, with NIP being eliminated from I Am Katowice, the main event, in last place, understandably, people are going to, as always, come for my boy Aleksib and imply he's not a good enough IGL, and look at OG, look how much better they are. By the way, OG has way better players than he used to have. And then they're also going to imply, and even like Ents with Snappy's better, totally different players again, none of the same people. And they're going to imply he's not that great a leader because, what's another team? G2, they're doing amazing. I don't know how much it took. But we'll see. Obviously, Uxie now has outperformed them by winning the tournament and having all this rest of it. They didn't make the major, we'll just say that. So, obviously, it's a perennial thing that people come and say, Aleksib's overrated, or he's just too controlling, all this shit. Here's the thing. I think this guy is one of the best IGLs of his generation. I think if you look in context on all his teams, he actually outperforms the players he has and the context that he's in. I don't think he's ever had world-class players. He's never had a lineup like the current OG. He's maybe got it now in NIP, and he's only just had a couple of tournaments. He's already had to change and take out and bring config in, and then Hampus is gone, and he's only just getting his five-man lineup now. The head trick person wasn't even an AWPer. Now he's working with him. Even he just actually tried a good game in the last match, finally. So finally things are coming together, but I understand if you're a noob, if you're a casual, you don't know why Aleksib is a midget. And especially, people love to say in OG he wasn't good. That he was the problem in OG. Like, he should have performed so much. Where are the deep land finishes with this team? Well, we're going to look at that. I'm going to show you the context. And I'm going to show you he worked miracles in OG online and coming to the land period. So remember, Aleksib came up in Ents in Finland, speaking Finnish, and wasn't an international player. He played in these teams. If you remember Ents, the story was, it was around like April, they got the proper lineup that you know from 2019. And then they had the initial nice little run where they got... They had the Cologne top 8. Remember, top 8, you just missed out on making the stage there. They beat some good teams. Then they got twisted. I think like August, things started to get better. The big peak, obviously, by the way, they almost made a major, was winning DreamHack Open Winter. That was a pretty good one, but it was obviously the Star Series was the big one. This one here, where they won over Vegas Squadron, that was a tournament that had Mouse Sports in, Big, Optic. There was a bunch of well-known teams at that point in time. Obviously, though, 2019 is what made Aleksib's reputation. Is the reason why international squads want him, because of what Ents did. So they went to the major. They came second at the major. They beat Team Liquid and Na'Vi. By the way, those are the number 2 and number 3 teams in the world. Then they went to Blast Sao Paulo, third place. Is that good? First of all, these are all good teams at Blast. And then secondly, they were one round. If they'd have beaten Team Liquid, had one extra round, they'd have played Astralis in the final. So then after that, they went to Star Series in China. They actually were doing really well, but they had to play Na'Vi in the quarters, and Na'Vi won the event, and Electronic and Simple went supernova. Then they played Blast Pro Series and won that, beating Astralis in the final, 2-0, stopping the nuke streak, stopping, essentially for me, ending the era. Then they went to CS Summit, had a top 4 there, placed behind Team Liquid and Vitality, 2 of the best teams of this era. Then they went to Dream Masters Dallas, came second to Team Liquid. They went to ESL Cologne, where they finished last, but that's because they got upset by, I think, Heroic in the upper bracket or something like that, and then, or some other team, and then Alone G2 or something, and then the lower bracket they had to play Vitality, believe it or not, in the last place match and got eliminated, like what's just happened to Aleksib now. But then after that, they went and came second at I Am Chicago, which is a tournament that featured Vitality and MIBR and a bunch of other teams. And then they went to the major. That was the one where Aleksib knew he was getting kicked. They came top 8, but then they famously failed against a Vanguard, who went on to come second at the event. Then he swapped to OG. Now, first things first, let's remind ourselves what OG's lineup was when Aleksib joined. Right, it wasn't this, spoiler. They announced their new lineup. So it's NBK. NBK was the one making the team. Aleksib, who we quickly got in. By the way, I heard stories Aleksib could have been in FaZe Clan with Nico, but maybe Alu said something. Maybe he could have been in... Yeah, we'll leave that there. Let's just say FaZe Clan with Nico. That would have been pretty interesting, right? I think it would have been a banger. Great replacement for Carrigan. So then he had to go elsewhere. He went and joined MBK, who'd also been kicked at the same time for Vitality. Okay, good piece there. You got an IGL, good support player. You had Valde. Look, he's been playing a really good supportive role in the scene, and IGL in North was all right. But his time of being a star player, it was a couple of years before, so he'd have to get back to that level of like 2-3 years ago. But you figure he's got skills, Valde, and a good work ethic. Then you also bring in a star talent, Issa from Hellraisers. Hellraisers used to be hard carried by Woxic, and Issa would occasionally have a good map. Was always a player who was very streaky on LAN. And online, he was terrible because he had the position where he was playing for Jordan and had bad ping and bad routing. And we were just about to go into the online era shortly after this. And then your last one's Mantu, who at the time came from like alternate attacks, wasn't even an AWPer there, became an AWPer here because they couldn't get Yampy or Poison, the other people they wanted. And instead, Mantu swaps up. He actually ends up being half decent. It's just he gets stuck at the tier 1 level and never makes it past that. Right? Look at these names here. On paper, by the way, that should maybe, if everything goes right, be a top 10 team. There's no reason it should ever contend, ever should go deep in tournaments. Should never probably be a top 5 or 6 ranked team with that lineup. Mantu's nobody. Issa's barely anyone and very one-dimensional. Bad comms as well. Valde is good, but hasn't had his star days from many years before. NBK's tried to be an IGL a million times and it erupted, and now he's honest, not going to do it. And Aleksib is the IGL, but he's having IGL in English now with a totally different set of group of people. Not some of the lesser names and smaller friends that he had in Ents and players that haven't done anything yet and will listen to him and he didn't have. There's Twister in that team. Yeah, obviously you got Rogger as his coach in this team, but that's coming from a Danish team with MSL and Snappy and North and Optic. Like, he's also not coming to an international team with a lot of experience. So actually, you look at this lineup, if he can do anything in 2020, this is going to be pretty legit, right? Because remember, he gets stuck with this lineup until February of over a year later, so about 14 months. Let's see what they accomplished. So the first tournament, you might remember the first tournament was a LAN. They very quickly went to CS Summit when they were able to, which wasn't that great and stacked a LAN. And look, we'll have a look at some of the results here. Sure, it had some all right teams. Fury had been one of the upset teams of the year. G2 was still half decent, although at this point in time, Shox has left and gone to Vitality. MIBR still has fallen. All the guys, they've got Mayan though at this point in time instead of Cold Zero. Mouse Sports still has the lineup that actually was, at this point in time, they obviously were really good and they'd won Pro League, etc. Maybe they won Pro League right after this. I think it was right after this. They had OG themselves, and then Virtus Pro was still like some decent players like Snacks and Mishu and Snatchy. There's some not bad players coached by Cuban. Right, so they managed to finish 2-2-1. They make it into the playoffs. They lose to Mouse Sports 2-1. Right, where's the shame in that, by the way? Getting to a third map against Mouse Sports, even winning Mirage against them. Mouse Sports was like, I think at this point, like a top 3 team in the world. They won the CSGO Asia Championship. Maybe they were top 5 in the world if they hadn't won Pro League yet. But this was one of the tournaments that they were on that added the little streak of they had like 3, 4, 5 finals in a row, didn't they? So that's not even a shame to lose to them. Remember, it was only in the final when Carrigan had to go after map 1 and they played that bizarre thing and somehow G2 managed to lose to them. That was the disgrace. There's no shame at all in what OG did here. This is actually pretty good. They finished ahead of MIBR and Furia. We're more established teams. There's major winners on MIBR. Fury has some of the best up-and-coming talents, Keserato and Yuri, and VP is just a bunch of good Polish players. This is a very respectable result, all in all. Look, they lost against Mouse in the group, as they should. They went 1-1 with VP, 1-1 with G2. That's how you get the draws. Then they beat MIBR and beat Furia. This is a great outing for your first time in an international squad. So then you go to next year, 2020. Now, unfortunately, they weren't able to get through the Katowice qualifier, so they didn't qualify to what ended up being the big LAN of the year, because then we had to go online because you know what. But they went to the Ice Challenge just before, and crucially, they lost to Mad Lions here, who was on the rise, and the Godsent team that later became FPX with a bunch of players that actually at the time seemed like they were a pretty nice little mix of international players. So, okay, that's not so great. Maybe that's a little bit of a down performance. Then they go right after to Blast, though, weeks later, and at Blast in the groups, remember, they were the ones that were in a group where they're supposed to finish last place. Here's what their group was. Their group was 100 Thieves. By the way, that's the team that at the end of last year had been like a top 5-6 team, had made the semis of the major, especially when they were Renegades. G2, which yes has lost Shox, but still got Kenny S and Amanek and Jax and those guys. Evil Genius is one of the best teams in the world, has won tournaments and finished top 4 at the last major. And what happens? Even though they're supposed to finish 3rd or 4th and only top 2 get out, they managed to beat EG. It was a really epic series. They lost to G2, who fragged out. Oh, actually, this is the better G2. This is G2 when they'd already got Nexa and Hunter, and they'd gone like multinational, and Kenny was still good, and Hunter was fragging out. Then in the low bracket, they beat EG again, 2-1, one of the best teams in the world. We didn't know yet that they'd dropped off. And then in the final, they lost 2-1, close 3rd map, 16-14, to G2. They almost won their group. Against the odds, again, outperforming expectations. And with who? They've got Kenny S, Hunter. They've got JKS, Jacob. They've got players like Breeze, Cirque, Ethan. Give me a break. He's working with Mantu, Issa, and Valde is his fraggers. That's who he's got as his fraggers. So already you can see it's actually going pretty well early on LAN. So you have that tournament there. Then we have to go online though. Online, okay, don't do so well in Pro League. 6th, not that great. Then you go here. It's not going so well in the initial online period. Still having to get it together. But then you come here, blast European finals. Right, look, this sucks that in the upper bracket you lose complexity because that's the complexity with config that won the tournament. Now the lower bracket one you have no excuse for. That NIP wasn't so good. There's a very average lineup. There was up and coming players. That one sucks a bit. Okay, that blows. That's not a great result. This is not a good one so far. There's a strike, right? So then let's keep going forwards. Then you come on and they qualify for CS Summit. Brilliant. And DreamHack Summer. These are two of the big online tournaments. Obviously, we were set in the European region here. So at CS Summit, they finished third. That was an RMR at the time to get you points to go to the major. And look where they finished. They finished behind Big, who at the time was blazing because Sirius was on fire, and they always used to beat FaZe. And Vitality, still a really strong team, was even one of the best players in the whole world. And this is when they're starting to work into the mix some of the other names. They get Masuta going. Shocks is half decent still. RPK is solid. This is a very solid team. So finishing third there, no shame at all. Ahead of Heroic, who, by the way, wins like Pro League, not Pro League. I think they finished second in Pro League. They were able to have success themselves and become number one. By the way, Big and Heroic became number one around this time period when they come third here, OG. So you look at what they did. Okay, they win their group there with Big and FaZe and Heretics. Heretics was the French team, and that's a Spanish org as far as I know. Then in the playoffs, they beat North. Not that great a North, admittedly. They lose to Vitality. Listen, they have Zebu, mate. And even then, look at this. This is a mega close overpass game. Okay. You go to low bracket, you beat Godsend, team that beat you on LAN earlier in the year. Take care of them. Go to the next match, you beat Heroic, epic series, but you're beating them. You go to play Big. Look, it's not super close, but you make it 3 maps and you come third. Very respectable finish. Bearing in mind, your lineup. Look who FaZe Clan has. Nico, Rain, Cold Zero, Brokey. Yeah, sure, BMAS. Even Ents has probably a better lineup of players, even though they weren't that good at the time. G2 still got the Nexo Hunter. Kenny S, still some skilled players there. You go over here. You've got Mouse Sports. It's still the same lineup from the Banger LAN lineup of 2019. Big has got Xantares still. So they had more firepower. And Fnatic, who doesn't even do anything almost here, they still have like Crims, J-Dub. They have the mega LAN lineup. They have the LAN lineup. And you're finishing third. Very respectable placing. Then you look, after that, DreamHack's Open Summer, remember? Top 4 finish. You go there, you're able to, let's see, you beat Spirit. This is when they had like a different set of players, though. Again, a bunch of talents. You beat Spirit, you lose to Complexity, very close series. Complexity's in their prime at this point in time online. You beat Force, close series, but you take care of them. You get into the semis, you play against Big, you go 3 maps, third map 16-14, and this is when Xantares and Sirison are bangers, by the way. Xantares plus 13, Sirison plus 9. What's going on here, guys? It's just not working with that good a lineup. I wonder what people think other IGLs would, unless it's Carrigan, what do you think other IGLs would do with this lineup? You think they'd win the tournament or something? So let's keep going. There's already a couple of banger results in a row, right? Then you come second in the New York qualifiers. You go into IEM New York. You go to ESL Cologne, who's online at this point in time. And what happens? Oh, look at this. We beat Nip. Still not that great, but the Swedish lineup. Lose to Sprout, but this isn't even a terrible Sprout. Look at the players. Like Dennis and Spinny are veterans, they're not that good. Dija is now in Ents. Farven, obviously later in Bit. Like, this isn't a bad set of players. And the NKJ guy always knew what he was doing, by the way. You lose to them, admittedly close. Could have been, I guess they could have 2-0 you actually, so I won't say it was that close. No, it wasn't that close. You get a map, but it's not that close. So then you go to low bracket, you beat Mad Lions, you got revenge on them, that team that you played earlier in the year. You go to the playoffs, you have to play G2. It's August, so let's just see. No, this is before they've gotten Nico, but they still have Kenny S. Next, like Kenny S admittedly was falling off now, but you still have a half decent set of players there. Okay, losing to them's not that great. Pretty close though, third map, 1917. By the way, because this is a team where they're speaking in English, they're a multinational squad, they're from all over the place, they don't have massive big names, they don't have a big superstar player, there's no top 10, top 20 player here. In fact, let's go do that right now. In fact, let's just quickly show you. In 2020, where's the superstar player for OG, by the way? Bear in mind, he's making semis, finals, like top 6 team in the world. Let's go down and look here. Not a single one. Even at the bottom, you have JKS and Breeze and you have Crims and Henny and Brolan and Yuri and Hunter. These are all people in that Sirison. These are all in the teams that are beating you, mate. Look, the next year, by the way, 2021. Broke it at the bottom, Elise. Both years, not a single player does Aleksib have in the HLTV top 20. So then you go here, okay, you lost there to G2. Could have been a semis, you didn't. Famously, OG used to collapse at the end of close games, partly because comms would be garbled, people like Gisser aren't reliable, Valde can't frag as much, Mantu's inexperienced and can't go against the tier 1 AWPers. Like, what do you want? You want Aleksib to just drop 40 himself. So after this performance, still a playoff performance, by the way, still a top 8. In Pro League, admittedly, they did pretty bad, 9th to 10th. But then they come to IEM New York, which was European division, which is online. They come second. This is a very legit run. Look, they win their group. In doing so, they beat Big, who at the time was like #1 team in the world around that period. They beat FaZe Clan with Nico and Cold Zero and all those guys. A mega lineup of players on paper. They just didn't have good IGL, obviously. Kirby's in the lineup at this point in time, and Nico's IGLing. Yanko's still the coach. They beat them 2-0. Zip them up. Semi-close series. Go to the playoffs. Beat Fnatic. Fnatic had Crims this year in the top 20 guys. Maybe even Brolan, I can't remember. Okay, decent series. Yeah, first map's close, but you beat them 2-1. You go to the final, you have to play FaZe again. This is the one where the first map's close, third map's close, but watch. Look at everyone frag out, because they just have much, much better players. Meanwhile, on this team, Aleksib, look, he has minus there, etc. Look at this. He has, like, decent players. Who's world-class here? Who should beat their compatriot? They shouldn't. Second place is mega there. And so because of that, let's go here. Let's look at the ranking. Aleksib got the team here. Now we're about here, guys. They're going up to 12th, 11th. They're heading up. We're about to enter the top 10, aren't we? We're about to enter the top 10. We started the year at 27. We're about to enter the top 10. That's called doing your job. So then you come to here. And after that, you have a 7th at DreamHack Fall. Okay, that was like a weird RMR, if people remember. So in the groups here, their problem was they actually had a very stacked group, didn't they? I know Mouse was bad at this time, and Fnatic was dropping off, but the players are bangers. It's still the LAN lineups, and then Vitality is one of the best teams of the year. So what happens? You lose a 2-1, semi-close to Fnatic. You beat Mouse. They still had players like Rops and Frozen, and Mark Sickle, he sucked. And then you lose to Fnatic, 2-1, very close series. Could have won this, you didn't. By the way, Fnatic went on to finish 5th to 6th. In the playoffs, that makes you the playoffs, by the way, because in this tournament, top 3 gets you there. You go into here, you start in the lower bracket. In the lower bracket, beat G2. G2 had one of the players of the year, like Hunter or whatever. I think he was like a top 20 player that year. They have him. Doesn't matter. Beat him. Next match, lose to NIP. Admittedly, that was a weird sort of like team that would get them someone. Then they beat Sprout to get 7th because this was an RMR and it was all about points. So that's, by the way, getting you in a good position to qualify for the major. That never happened in 2020 in Rio. Obviously ended up happening in 2022. So then you come through. Blast Premier Fall Season, still online. You go here. They're in a group with EG, who actually is very good at this time. They've been dominating NA. NIP is still whatever, but they have a good matchup against OG. And Na'Vi, this is when Simple, I think, played some of the best Counter-Strike ever. Short was online, but ever. So they beat EG 2-1. Pretty close third map. They beat Na'Vi 2-0. Guys, I think Simple was the best player this year. Simple has plus 20. Electronics there. Perfecto's there. Boom Bitch is there. There's just no bit. Aleksib is one of the guys who has to go off. It's not Issa. Issa was a bad player. Valde's not doing very well, but he's more supportive. Well, in the middle of this team. Mantu has a very good series. It's Aleksib having to go plus 10 to beat Na'Vi. You're not supposed to even win that game. So you win your group. You go on. IEM Beijing Online Europe. Yeah, it's terrible. It goes really badly. In this one, you lose to FaZe Clan. They still do have banger players, guys. Very close. In the lower bracket, you lose to Team Spirit. That's close. They are skilled players. Yeah, it's online, but that probably shouldn't happen. But look, they just frag out. They outfrag you, and they win the series. Yeah, probably shouldn't happen, though. Then again, it's the online era. How many teams really were consistent tournament? The joke is, a lot of the ones that weren't that good online, like Big and Heroic and Gambit, it was only Na'Vi and Vitality and eventually Astralis, aside from that, could get it together and consistently make runs. So then you go, after this one, they go to Flashpoint. They finish ahead of Fnatic and Big and MIBR. And they make it to the final. They very narrowly lose to Virtus Pro, who at the time was a really on-the-rise team. That's the end of 2020. How did 2020 go? Started at 26th. Eventually you got up to 6th in the world. with no top 20 player, and you end the year at 7th. So you start 2021, don't you? Remember? 2021, they bench NBK in February, they bench Issa in March, and they get Nico from Heroic, lowercase k, Danish Nico, the one that got wrecked by 100 later, and they get Flames from Endpoint, the Israeli player, in April, and then they re-sign, get rid of Issa, and it's not until the end of the year that they actually release MBK, even though obviously he already went off and was in like Double Pony and all that jazz. So let's look how 2021 went. Yeah, not that great at CS Summit, but you lost to Heroic. By the way, they win Pro League shortly after this. You win the Steel Thieves Invitational, but who cares about that? You go to Blast Premier Groups, you do badly in this one. Okay. Yeah, Charles, by the way, was a top team at this time. Although this is when they started to fall off. You go to the IM World Championship, you lose to FaZe. Okay, let's see who else they lost to on this one. This is when they're getting the new lineup in around this time period. Let me see, February. I think this is when they kick MBK, maybe. Was this actually the last tournament before they kicked MBK? No, they'd already kicked him at this point in time, and they'd gotten in... Oh, no, they hadn't. This is the last tournament, I think, for him. Okay. So let's see what happened to them. They beat Fnatic in the plane. Lost to Team Liquid. Very close. Beat Cloud9, but that was an NA Cloud9. Oh, no, that was the Henry G Cloud9. Okay, close series. Cloud9 wasn't terrible. They just didn't win games, if you remember. They go into the actual tournament. They lose to Vitality. They'd been one of the best teams in the world before. They have Nevera standing in for a map. By the way, that used to work back then. 2-0. Close series, right? Go to the lower bracket. You lose to FaZe Clan. Who was FaZe Clan at this point in time? I think this is when they've already gotten... This is like the tournament where Carrigan maybe joined. No, he's just joined. Carrigan has joined, but they've got Cold Zera. They don't yet have ROPS, because obviously that comes at the end of this year. Still a solid set of players. You lose to them. Not even that big a shame, but okay. Not at the deep finishes that are going to get you 6th or 7th place in the world, is it? Then you keep going. You have ESL Pro League Season 13. Did badly there. Blast Spring Showdown. You lost to G2, but this is G2 with Nico, by the way. Nico's joined already. Kenny S is out. That's already some solid players. That lineup, by the way, is the one that later in the year comes to the major final. But admittedly, they weren't quite... Well, no, they actually this year already were very good. This is when they were always going 3rd and 4th, and very rarely could they actually get into the final, right? So, you beat Astralis with Bobski for Zipnix, and you lose to G2. Look how close. They have Nico and Hunter. Guys, look how close this is. You even 16-3 them on a map. Not even that bad when I look at it in context, right? Then you get a qualify for IM Summer. You go to Flashpoint 3. That sucks, but you'll see. Look. You lose to Astralis. Very close. Astralis, remember, still have a bunch of the legendary players. They're just dropping off as a team. They're not anywhere close to a top team. Fairly close series. Go to the low bracket. You lose to Vitality with Ziwu. Now, admittedly, this is when Vitality was struggling, but still have Ziwu, mate. You have no top 20 players. Even when you're getting in now, these players, you brought in Flames, you brought in Nico. Still, where's the top 20 player there? By the way, Flames isn't even a top 20 player now in 2023. This is 2021, and he's never played Lands at this point in time. So then let's keep going. You go up, do all right online. You go to IEM Summer. How the hell do you finish second with this lineup at IEM Summer? Remember, look at all the teams here. You've got NIP with Device, one of the better teams. Ziwu on Vitality. Gambit is the dominant team. You got Heroic, it's already a very strong online team. You got Virtus Pro with your Kindar and Jim, solid set of players, right? You've got G2 with Nico Hunter, one of the top teams. And then you got OG's lineup. How on earth can you finish second in this field? I'll tell you how. Someone like Aleksib, I've heard his comms. He knows exactly what he's doing. As long as people don't get in his way, and at this point he's kicked one of them, NBK. Oh, now he has more control, even maybe with potentially a slightly more skill, but not that great roster still. So let's go and look what he did. They beat they beat NIP, who had Device, one of the best AWPers in the world. He has Man2. That's his AWPer. Then he goes against Virtus Pro. This is supposed to be one of the better teams in the world. 2-0 them. 2-zip, one of the hardest teams to play against. Lexi B called against them, didn't he? He beat EG, who has like a mix of players that are just up and down. They're not that great already at this point in time, but you beat him and you convincingly beat him on your maps. You only barely lost the first map. You go to the playoffs. You beat Vitality, who has Ziwu. Just beat them straight up. 2-1. And in the final, you lose to Gambit. Yeah, it's Gambit. Gambit was like unbeatable at this point in time. Look at the fucking numbers they're dropping. And then look what Aleksib B's working with. By the way, you'll all say Flames was the most skilled player on the team, right? Minus 28. Less kills than Aleksib B. Worse stats than Aleksib B. Nico. I mean, 4 of them are minuses, mate. Like, what are you supposed to do? We came second in this fucking tournament. Then you go beyond that. So then we go to IM Cologne. Terrible, right? I mean, remember, this lineup is fucking shit. But let's have a look. They bomb it in the plains, I'm assuming. They beat Team 1. Who cares? They lose to Big. Look, Big's still a decent online team. They're not quite as good at this point in time, but they're still a solid online team. You go to the lower bracket. You lost to Renegades. This is going to be the Australian one, I'm guessing. Right, this one's shameful. I'll give you that. It's online, but this is a shameful result. Oh no, this is a LAN actually. This is the first LAN back. There you go. The first LAN back. So actually, by the way, you probably should lose to Big. They're just a better team. And then losing to Renegades online, I will say that is shameful. This is second strike. There's a big strike for you. That one I think is unforgivable. There's 2 strikes he's gotten right. Then you keep going. ESL Pro League, it was online. This was the one that was won by Navi and Vitality came second. This is in 2021, remember guys? 2021. Finishes in September. All the best teams are there. In your group, you top it. And by the way, this isn't going to look that great now. At the time, this was a really strong group. Like, there's no bad teams here. Like, 4s are good to get online upsets. Complexity, yeah, they're not that great now, but they've got a couple of decent players. This is when they still have Config in that. Oh, no, this is when Config had his injury, I think. So they brought in, is this when they got Essetag? They had JKS and Poison. Yep, okay. It's still some good players, by the way. So you got them, you got Virtus Pro, which is still some top players. You got Sinners, which was like Neo, Frag, and Oscar. And then you have G2, which is the real one. Nico, all the rest. This is one of the few tournaments where they did badly. They just bombed because G2's had some weird results in pro leagues for some reason. And then you go to the playoffs. You go there, you play NIP with Device. Take care of that. Close first map, but you win 2-1. You lose to Vitality, who have Ziwu. By the way, this is one LAN now. So when you're on LAN, remember Vitality was a different beast. They were like second or third best team by the end of the year. Finally, Flames has a good series. Ziwu goes plus 13. Kyojin even goes plus 8. Man alive. Shocks has a good performance. Oh, this is the Vitality that's starting to get it together. You finish top 4. That's very respectable. What's wrong with that? Top 4 Pro League. Blast fall groups. Yeah, you don't do that well, do you? Let's look how it goes. You're in a group with Na'Vi, FaZe, and Complexity. Complexity, some decent players, and now I've called Zera. Na'Vi's one of the best teams in the world. And FaZe is the team that is like minus ROPS. But other than that, it has broke, it has twist, has rid. And on LAN, they just showed it at Cologne. They were a top 4 team. Interesting, right? But then you look here. Obviously, they still weren't super duper mega online, though. In the groups, they lose to Na'Vi. Close series, could have won. Oh, actually, I'm getting the wrong way around. No, it wasn't that close on the other map, but they won a map. You won a map off Na'Vi with Simple and Bait and all those fuckers that were going mad on LAN. This is online, remember? Then you lost to FaZe, 2-1 in the lower bracket. But again, it was close series. You could have won 2-0. Yeah, okay, that's not even that egregious. Remember, what lineup are you working with? He doesn't have a top 20 player. Twists and Brokey both play for Carrigan. What's Aleksib working with, guys? Guys, he has to frag out sometimes to get these results. So then you come to IEM Fall Europe. That was the LAN RMR, if you remember. So it started like a pro league. It had this weird format here. And they managed to get a playoff spot. So they're in a group. They're ahead of, teams you should be ahead of. Behind teams you should be behind. And so starting to get half decent with like the newer lineup, but not like the one you remember now with Spinks. Or did they have Spinks at this point in time? Oh, they already had Spinks. They already have a half decent team. It's just they had Doto before they got in. Who would it be? Be another Polish player, wouldn't it? No, it'd be Madden. It was before they got Madden. By the way, Doto was a half decent Finnish player. So you come third, where you probably should be. Get to the playoffs. Oh, sorry, that's a tiebreaker. That only gets you a tiebreaker. Then they lost to FaZe, and this is on LAN. So it's not even a shame to lose to FaZe like that. Just happens, doesn't it? You beat Heroic, but who really cares? By the way, Heroic at this point in time, top 8 team in the world. This is on LAN. I haven't made the big runs yet, but they're still a solid team. That's actually a pretty good win to get under your belt. Keep going. You go up and you've got Blast Fall Showdown. It's the online tournament that tries to get you into the Blast Finals. What happens? You beat Pain Gaming, you beat Complexity, you lose to Heroic. What's the shame in that? Close series against Heroic. They're one of the better teams in the world. This is in October. This is just before the major when Heroic is like top 4 at the major and could have gone to the final. They were a very solid team at this point in time. You keep going up a little bit. Then your last tournament's another LAN. IEM Winter. You didn't do well at this one. Let's have a look. You lost to Team Liquid narrowly. Team Liquor wasn't in that great form, but they're okay. They're just okay. This is the Stewie Fallen era. You beat Tyloo, obviously. You lose to NIP. This is actually when they still had Device, by the way, before they replaced him. Device was a plus 23. Again, who the fuck are they working with on OG? In context, like, look, that's not even that bad, actually. Maybe the Team Liquid one you should win. Even then, they still got some good players. The NIP one, I don't even think it's that bad. I mean, look, you could have won 2-0. This is a close series. Goes 3 maps. There's no shame in that, is there? NIP, by the way, go to the final even when Device drops after the semis. Or just before the semis, maybe. There's no shame at all in that run. That's not a strike. That's the end of the year. Then he goes to G2. We're not doing G2 now. So let's go back to this. Let's have a look at 2021. You started 7th, but by here, we're on LAN. You started 7th. Yeah, you dropped. So you kicked MBK and you benched Issa. Yeah, you have initial problems. You start to get some okay. Look, you're back to 16th. 16th then by. You're at number 10 by the time we get to June. Few months and you're back to 10 in the world with no top 20 players. Then you drop a little bit. The worst you go is 16th. You come right back 10. Then you go up to 9th. Then you spike right before the major in October at 6th in the world again with this lineup. Nico, Valde, Mantu, Flames. Who the fuck? We started playing lands now, boys. How the hell is he 6th in the world in 2020 with the whack lineup? 6th in the world in 2021 with a whack lineup. And yeah, he ends the year. It goes to 19, it dips up and he goes to 17th and he leaves. By the way, he found the team. They were 27th. He ended with them as 17th after all the ups and downs. And look at that curve. If you just make a line, by the way, the line goes up to there. Goes from here to here, doesn't it? And obviously the peak. That's a very legit line for the players who work in this an online era. And by the way, it's hard to win online. He didn't have mad onliners either. There's the other thing. And what have they done without him, eh? Without him, highest they've ever been was 8th. Briefly. Aside from that, the rest of history. And they have better players in this time period, guys. Especially here, they have way better players. They have Dexter. Neofrag Feek. They've got a much better set of players. So I think Aleksib did a banging job. I think he's a mad underrated IGL. And I expect, depending on what happens with Headtrick, if Headtrick becomes a legit AWPer, in the NIP will be a top 5 team. If he doesn't, there'll be a top 10 team and they'll have upset potential when the riflers are going off. And if he can get config bedded in, I actually think, again, even just off that factor, they're going to be heading to like a 7th, 8th, 7th in the world. And they're going to be doing something on land, quite frankly. This guy is a really good caller. I work hard to make sure I get mine, but no one can do it all on their own. And that's why everyone needs a support group. And so I have my Patreon community. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask a question in one of these monthly AMAs. Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming guests are. Or maybe you want to take part in one of those long discussions where you can help set the table of the topics and join in with other like-minded people. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link below, as the following people who I very much appreciate did. Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Kyle, Bot Pounder 420, Thooorin, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Tosh, and always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion.